Good.
Okay, Ruud Dokter, we have you with us, High Performance Director of the Football Association of Ireland. Thank you for being with us in the interview. Can you start by telling us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in both working for the Dutch Federation and the Irish Federation?
Yes, thank you, Dadi, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be back in Iceland, so to say. Yeah, it's interesting when you look back at your own career and how did that develop and what were the key moments in my career or in any career where you have to take important decisions. So looking back now, everything goes very gradually, you know, and nothing, it is very difficult to plan actually in life where you go, and especially in football. But to start off, I played long time competitive football at top amateur level in Netherlands. I studied physical education, became a teacher in primary and secondary school, and then probably the first key moment in my career was that I started at a young age to get my coaching qualifications while still playing. So at the age of 24, I had my A diploma, and so while still playing, I started my coaching career. So managing an amateur team, managing youth teams, and that is very important, of course. So then another important decision was actually that I became a part-time football development officer at the Dutch Football Association in one of the regions. I was still teaching, I was still playing, and at the same time coaching. So then probably the most pivotal moment in my coaching career was then when I left my teaching job. I was 35 and went full-time into football. And I became then a national team youth head coach of the various national youth teams and the women's team as well. So that's a very important decision because I look back now and a lot of people had also opportunities but didn't take those opportunities. So that started then to become the national head coach, and I did it for 5 years and basically always on the road. I started off with 5 national teams. Can you believe that? The programs were probably, of course, were lesser at the time, but 5 national teams, it's unbelievable. And basically always on the road and away from home. And I remember my wife asking me one time, "So where were you?" I said, "Well, to be honest, I was in Italy, but that's all I know." Because you're in the bus and you drive to the hotel and then you see the pictures and you go home.
And this was not so long ago. I mean, this is the 90s.
Yeah, it was the 90s, yes. Yeah. We're speaking about 1995 till 2000. And yeah. So then I actually in 2001, I went completely out of my comfort zone and went for a brief spell to Qatar, coaching the under-20s, and also I was academy director and coach of the national military team. And in those countries, the military team is very important. We had to go to the military World Cup as well. So 70,000 attendance in Egypt. I remember, great experience, and the whole experience in Qatar was a life experience. Totally different environment, and
that's actually a big tournament, like you said, for many countries.
It is, yeah, a very big tournament, and so it was a big experience for myself as well to go in there. And I became an academy director there of what we know the Aspire Academy. So I was basically the first one there. But then my family was back home, so I decided to go back to the KNVB in 2003 and became again head coach of the various international teams and coach educator. And then in 2013, I was approached to become the high performance director of Ireland. So that's where I am now. And yeah, to summarize, I've gone through the whole pathway of being a player, a teacher, coach, manager, coach educator, mentor, high performance director. And honestly, I consider myself as very lucky to have had so many inspiring teachers, coaches, mentors, tutors, and that is important because they have so many influence on people. And yes, you have to be lucky to have those people. So I think it's important for coaches to be always to have that that you have to inspire people.
Yeah. Did you have any certain mentors that you look back on and said, really changed your view or helped you?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, my teacher in physical education in high school, he was excellent. He was excellent in providing that great experience of learning, and actually he inspired me also go to do the physical education academy to become a teacher. But then on the Academy of Physical Education, there were some excellent teachers, teachers in different sports that were all top class. So I still remember it, and we still meet every 5 years. There's a reunion of my class. That inspired me absolutely. Then when I went to the Dutch Football Association, I was absolutely inspired by Bert van Lingen. Bert was also a previous coach of the international teams. He was an educator. He worked later on with Dick Advocaat at the national Netherlands team, but also he worked with him in Glasgow and Russia. Rinus Michels is another one, a world-class coach who inspired me, and I was very lucky to, was in that environment, not particularly have worked with him, but he was the technical director when I was there as well. So yes, my advice would always be to coaches, make sure that you're inspirational to the players, to your environment.
Yeah. So you had many roles at the Dutch FA. What is it about Holland that is they're able to compete, even though you consider yourself a small nation in that sense?
Yeah, we probably in kilometers we are a small country, but there's a population of 17 million and over 1.2 million registered players. So yeah, it's not particularly small. I mean, okay, Germany, population of 80 million, France 60 million, Spain 50 million population, more players. But there's also, countries like Iceland, small population, and I believe 25,000 registered players. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's very small, and it's it's so unbelievable, impressive, the results of your international team. It's unbelievable, and not only in football, also other sports, I understand.
So it's not just about the size of the country; it's about what you're doing, and so.
Yeah, absolutely, size does matter in terms of if you have more players, then also there's a chance of you have more talented players, of course. Yes. But like smaller countries, yeah, there is a strong emphasis on your plan and how to develop players. But so population, as that is important, but also the football infrastructure in Holland. There's approximately 2,500 football clubs, and within 2 kilometers, a child can choose to go to a club. Well, that's phenomenal. And these clubs have all top class facilities. Just like in my own hometown here, they're in the mid-table amateur club, but 1,200 members, I believe, 8 football pitches, top class facilities in terms of clubhouse and dressing rooms, and each club would have that.
Yeah.
And then I think a success is also there's a very clear and defined football vision on the game and how to develop players. That's been always there. The focus in football to develop the individual player. That is important.
When I visited Holland, you can see that there's a clear vision of how to do things. It seems like coaches in different clubs seem to have sort of a similar vision, but there's also a strong sense of the Dutch being quite innovative as well. Is this something you try to do willingly, or?
Yeah, that's very true. That is there always has been a strong a strong emphasis on the playing style and the so-called Dutch football school. So winning games, obviously, but also playing attractive. And that's a very difficult combination. Only a few teams can do that. But even at amateur level, you see that the teams always, they want them to play attractive football, not just play the long ball and or sit deep in defending, but attacking, try to win the ball as quickly back as they can. And variation in playing styles as well. Be dominant, keep possession, don't give it away. Players are certainly allowed to be creative, to make mistakes. So that has always been in the culture of the Dutch people here.
And like you said, positive attacking football, does it connect somehow with the Dutch psyche, the Dutch attitude of being Dutch? Do you think, does it connect?
I think it's probably a matter of a football culture. And that started way back in the 70s when Ajax was winning 3 times in a row. The Champions League was a different name at that time. And then the 74 World Cup, of course, can be seen as, I think, the start of the foundation of that football culture in Holland. Everyone who loved football was inspired by that performance. And so was I. I was, in those days, I was 14, 15, 16. And Ajax winning the football league and the football championship, and really I think I remember games against Bayern Munich and Real Madrid. They humiliated actually those teams. It was unbelievable. So that was the start of the identity, I would say, of Dutch football, and they called it total football, whatever. But of course, it was also heavily influenced by Johan Cruyff, the absolutely star player, world-class player, and Rinus Michels as the top-class coach. So I see that as the start of the Dutch football.
There's a lot of romance around those teams, so it's easy to fall in love with football when you grow up with this.
Yeah, absolutely, especially at that age. But I guess everyone was influenced by that.
So, the Dutch are located in this, magic circle, sort of close to the Ruhr area in Germany. So, in a big area in Europe, you have, short distances to football clubs. So, is this a beneficial factor for the Dutch to be located close to Belgium, France, Germany? So, you have access to ideas, players, things like that. Is this different from countries like Ireland and Iceland to be outside of this?
It was an interesting question, and I just thought about that. And I think the reason for success of the Netherlands are based on different factors, to be honest. As I said, the earlier like the infrastructure, the football vision, and how to develop players, that would have been probably more important and having world-class players as Johan Cruyff and others, and Rinus Michels as a top coach. So I don't believe that has had a major input in the success in the 70s. But nowadays, I don't think there's any distance anymore, because with having access to the internet, worldwide, knowledge is everywhere. Education, information can be gained, and there's no borders, there's no distance. And I think the challenge for each nation is how to develop good players.
Yeah.
And that's why coach educators are so extremely important, because coach educators develop coaches and coaches develop players, and that makes the game better. And as I said before, in fact, Iceland is a great example of that development. So again, what you have done is just an unbelievable result.
So there's more of a mindset nowadays.
Yeah, it's definitely a mindset, but also a culture. And yes, like the bigger countries, they have way more players. They can change. There's so many talent there, but countries like yourself and Ireland have a small population, so you have to be very careful and have a good understanding of the development pathway.
So to Ireland, you're high performance director of the Irish Association. What does that job entail? What is it that you're trying to do over there?
So what I do is I oversee, supervise all of the managers of the international teams, both men and the women. And that's the first one. So then we're talking about, playing style, high performance culture, etc. Second one is coach education, and I've put a big emphasis on that. So it's managed by Nigel Regan. Maybe you heard about him. Now there's a great job, and coach education is so important for every nation, I would say. But having better coach educators means better coaches. Better coaches means better football. So investment in that area is for each nation paramount. The third area I oversee is player development, and that refers then to the emergent talent programs from the boys and the girls. And
can you elaborate a little bit on those? How are you? What is the player pathway in Ireland?
Yeah, the player pathway is that we have our emergent talent programs from let's say from 11, 12, 13 and 14. So those are the regional talents. We have centers of excellence, so-called, boys and girls. And then we start with a national academy. So at the age of under 13 and under 14, but that's a large group of players. And then with the 14s, we already start to play international matches. So then for the 15s, of course, the international teams up all the way up to the men's senior team. And what we do is we have increased the program of that. So our 15s, our 16s, they play probably between 12 to 15 international matches. And we try to play really the strong countries as well. Like recently, the 15s played in Spain, the tournament with Spain, Holland and Czech Republic, and those experiences are very, very important.
What were the main challenges when you were coming into the job? What was the main challenge you had to face?
Well, the main challenge was there was in Ireland no clear pathway and no consistency in player development. So Ireland is made up of out of 32 leagues, and those leagues, they used to work all on their own. So in one league, a child of 10-year-old might play 7-a-side. In another region, another league, they might play 7-a-side or 11-a-side or 9-a-side. There was no consistency at all. Also in terms of rules, size of the goal, etc. That was the main challenge. So there was no common philosophy on player development. So what I did, I brought together a technical group with high-level coaches. And as a result of that, there was a player development plan launched in 2015. And key elements of that plan was actually to develop a common uniform philosophy on underage or / youth football. So the key principles of the plan were to implement a player-focused philosophy, so a player-centered approach based on enjoyment and skill development, and reduce the emphasis on winning at all costs. And then also apply a universal approach to the game formats, so a gradual build-up from 4v4 to 5v5, 7-a-side, 9-a-side, and then 11-a-side at under 13. Improve elite competition structure. So I introduced national competitions at under 19. No, well, the under 19 was already there, but then the under 17, the under 15, under 13 national league, a women's under 17 national league, and more national leagues are coming. So that pathway that has been installed. We've established underage football academies. So the League of Ireland clubs didn't have any academies. So now they all have under 13s, 15s, 17s, and 19s. So hugely important. And as I said before, we increased the coaching standards as well.
So the structure is obviously quite important in this whole setup.
Structures are key.
Yeah.
Structures are absolutely key in whatever nation you have, whatever population, but structures is so important that and in terms of elite football, that the best can play against the best. So that's developing players, but also developing coaches.
I think when coaches think about high performance a lot, we sometimes tend to drift towards the physical side. But can you maybe explain, if there's a more holistic view to high performance?
Yeah, well, that's true what you say. So high performance is usually referring to the physical side, which is not an island, because that's part of my role, of course. But as I said, my main areas are international football, player development, and coach education. But if we're speaking about high performance, in my view, there's three important questions to address. So first of all, what is high performance? What is a high performance culture, and how is a high performance culture embedded into the club or organization? And so to go to the first one, what is high performance? Well, in short, it is about having the best players, the best coaches, the best structures. And with structure, I mean, the organization, the clarity, setting high standards of respect, but also the best structure in terms of programs of the leagues, the best environment, very important, that would refer to teamwork, collaboration, shared values, positive attitudes, an environment of excellence, and then the last one, best behaviors, and it refers to attitude, professionalism, accountable, very important. Sometimes, people don't show that behavior, that it's always somebody else blame, but in high performance, there is no excuse, and people have to be accountable and professional.
So this requires a buy-in not just from coaches and players, but also from management, staff, and just everyone surrounding.
Definitely, good point. Definitely. So it's in my view, high performance is there's one team, one vision, and one goal. So if you talk about an organization, it's the management, the board of directors, the players, staff, management, departments. They all need to buy in on that.
Yeah.
And talking, just to finish this off, so talking about a high performance culture is not magical, and it also doesn't require a lot of money. It's always, because wherever you go, to every club or organization, there's always a culture. So you end up, whatever you do, there's always a culture. So you can say, okay, listen, that is the culture and that's what it is, or you try to create and sustain a successful high performance culture. And in reality, it's all about attitude, it's about motivation, it's about learning and creating the right environment. It's about continuous improvement, be the best you can be, accountable, not accepting mediocrity. So that's high performance culture. And then the last one is, how is that then embedded into your club or organization? What are the shared values and what are the common goals? What is the coaching philosophy? Is there strong leadership? Mm-hmm. What is the football identity? What is the style of play? What are the strategies? What is the match program? What is the support systems? So that all entails, in my opinion, a high performance culture.
I think you're saying that it's absolutely correct that there is a culture and it can be high performance, or it can think it's a high performance and it's not. So do you set any key performance indicators for the Irish football, for both coaches and clubs? Do you explain to them what good is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very relevant as well. Look, like my coaches, what I wanted to be is that all coaches they have a shared responsibility of developing players for the senior team, women's and men's. So the focus is on developing players for those teams, and not about coaches who want, just for their own team. And of course, every team wants to win. I mean, that's obviously, and we want to qualify for the finals in the underage teams. But we have a common playing style and principles of play, and I want them to collaborate. I want them to work within that philosophy, to work and to respect the principles on that. So collaboration between coaches is very important. We have monthly meetings to discuss every international match, and now we do it even weekly with the video calls. And coaches need to be open-minded, long life learners of the game, and how they play the game, how they deal with the game, how they manage the game, managing the substitutions, abilities to handle stressful situations, backroom team. So all that is encountered. And another key element for me is in coaches is self-development. So how do you reflect on your own performance, on your own strengths and weaknesses? Are you open to feedback, or are you asking feedback? All critical elements. And yes, we share those elements also with the clubs, and trying to develop those academies as well. And currently it's a massive change in Ireland. All those clubs have now the under 13s, 15s, 17s, and 19s, but also they need to have the coaches for that, the coaching staff, the backroom team. So yes, we bring them together and we discuss those issues and elements.
I think I catch your point about lifelong learners, because the game changes. In 10 years, usually the game changes quite a bit.
Yeah.
The requirements and high performance.
Yeah, it does, and that's why it's so important that we sit together as a group of coaches, with the men and with the women's as well. So there is an influence from everyone. So everyone brings his or her thoughts to the table. So there's learning across all the teams. That's so important. So and we encourage them to develop themselves, because it's lifelong. And currently what we do with our video calls is we focus on teams for the Nations League. We focus on teams for the upcoming team qualifications for the women's. So everybody feels part actually of hopefully the success of the teams. And again, you're not on your own. You're always working in a team. That's crucial.
Yeah. So I know you're taking a player-centered approach. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, and developmental autonomy in players?
Yeah. In a player-centered approach, the player is central and not the coach. If we're talking about underage football, youth football, as children are not mini adults. They often consider to be mini adults. And in fact, they are all different, and coaches should understand the needs of each individual. And that is a problem, usually. Mm-hmm. Because many coaches think that winning a match makes you a good coach. And in fact, it's a very limited view of the role of the coach. Winning matches is not happy players, happy parents, happy coach, happy club, happy everyone. It's a limited view. In fact, I believe everyone that works with children is a teacher. Full stop.
Yeah.
And that brings different responsibilities to the table. So coaches are teachers, they are educators, they are coaches, and above all, they are a role model. And going back to that last point, the sideline behavior of many coaches is in many cases, in my view, unacceptable.
So we have this view often of coaches, or just somebody who is successful in any profession, is that they're quite obsessed. But what you're basically you're saying is that the coach also needs to have a holistic approach. He needs to have more tools in his toolbox than just being obsessed about football.
Definitely. And that's not an easy one, because if you're coaching a team and that is not the club philosophy, then you're left on your own and you will be assessed on results. Yeah. So I don't assess my coaches only on result. Again, that's a very limited view, because there's so many factors are involved in that result. But that's why it's important to have a club philosophy that the director of coaching is supporting that. So that then the coach is not in his own and not so focused with winning matches. And of course, winning is the aim of the game. Don't get me wrong, because the coach should do everything to win the match. But it's very easy to have, if you're coaching an under 12, under 13, and you only allow your best players to have playing time, that's a limited view, because the best players of today are not necessarily the best players of tomorrow. So game time is very important for the players. And so what I said, I still see coaches on the sideline, and their behavior is too much driven by winning the game. And again, nothing wrong with winning the game, but it's focused on, too much on the referee decision, and coaches have to get away from that and learn to be more clinical and have better observation capacity, I think, what's happening in the game, because if they observe better, they can take better decisions, and then there's a better chance of winning the match.
Do you think this is getting better? Maybe I have a feeling of this in Iceland, that this is getting better, that coaches are getting more thoughtful on the sidelines than they used to be.
Yeah, I definitely see that in Ireland as well, but it's a long journey. And there was a survey conducted by UEFA, I believe it was 2016, not sure, but that has indicated that there is still a lot of work to be done in coach education, because from that survey, it indicated that there is still not enough fun for children, that coaches don't understand exactly the needs of children, sessions are not enjoyable enough, too much focus on winning, too many isolated drills, so how do you teach the game? Too many instructions, poor intervention techniques, and poor questioning techniques. So, I mean, that's pretty serious. So again, coach education is so important, and also to monitor, because during the course, the students might be brilliant, but when they go back to their own environment, and after 1 year, 2 years, you see them fall back in their own previous behaviors. And so it's important that coaches who are on the coaching pathway should be mentored along that pathway.
Yeah. Is there a higher, requirement for countries who are smaller in size, like Ireland, Iceland, to develop players of all sorts of, abilities than, maybe in larger countries where they're sort of weed themselves out? There's so many players that you can basically just pick up 11 players who are quite strong.
Not sure I understand the question again, Dadi. Can you repeat?
Yeah, so like in Germany, sometimes you feel like it's just a machine, and it's such a machine that the players who go through the whole system, you're always going to end up with a really good national team, no matter what.
Yeah.
But maybe in countries like ours, and they have a certain idea about what a player should look like, and they try to find it. But maybe we don't have this luxury and have to adapt players who don't have the whole package, so to speak.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like if you have a small number of players, your emphasis should be on developing those players. And yeah, the bigger countries have the luxury of so many players, and they can choose and pick whatever they want. So yes, they can set, I guess, different standards. But it's not to say like Iceland again, can beat England at the top level. So it's with the Germans, I don't know if they of course they have their own playing style and their own maybe preferred style of player they have, but I don't think the ideal player does exist. So everyone is different, and secondly, the game requires a different attributes. Football is not like gymnastics. There's no such thing as the ideal weight or height of a player. Like Spain was European champion in 2008, and they had the team with the smallest players. And just compare Ronaldo and Messi, two absolutely top players and totally different. So yes, you're completely right that you have a smaller number of players, but that doesn't mean that you can't be as successful. Of course, they have more chance, but Ireland, they can be successful as well. And to give you an example, our under-17 qualified for the finals 3 times in a row. The 19s were in the top 4 of the previous under-19s final. So yes, it can be done.
Yeah. So we have at Reykjavik University, where I'm teaching, we have a class on high performance, and we've been looking at coaching staffs and get this feeling that with data analytics, getting into football, you get a different viewpoint. Could coaching staffs benefit from, being diverse? Are coaching staffs in football maybe sometimes too homogeneous?
Well, depends on what you mean by homogeneous. Does that mean that you have only football coaches there, or do you?
Yeah, like if you compare them to NBA staffs, you see maybe more people who don't just look the same, like people who are of different color, people who even women on staff, and then you might have a data nerd, and then you have somebody who's strong coaching and football background, so you sort of have a bigger mix. It seems like it to our class.
Yeah, no, I definitely believe that is important to have the right staff, not just for the sake of having, all different, diversity, but you have clear and defined roles in your backroom team. So the assistant coach, the goalkeeper coach, etc. But all those in the staff, there needs to be a high performance culture as well. And sometimes, and I have that experience myself from when I was a manager, not everyone fits in the backroom team, because the more people you have in the backroom team, the more voices you have, because everybody, wants to feel important as well. Yeah. So it's important to have the right number of staff, to have exactly an idea what you want to have. So if you have a data analytics in your team, what kind of data do you want to know? Because like every game is now so much analyzed that, you can have a book of 80 pages of information of the game, but that's not always helpful. So what do you want to know? What is your philosophy? What is your style of play? What are your principles? And what do you want to get out of the data? That's for me crucial, and find the right people that you're together as a team.
So this requires the coach not only to be a good manager, but also to have a clear vision of where he's going.
A clear vision, it starts with a clear vision, and also how to manage your backroom team. Yeah. And again, from my own experience, I didn't have the right staff around me. I picked sometimes wrong people, and that's an experience as well, because you only know when you work with people if they fit with you or not. And I mean wrong people, I mean, staff, they have to be complementary to you. They have different, they bring different abilities and qualities to the table.
And working in the same direction.
And working in the same direction, yeah.
I know you're a busy man, and I want to thank you for taking the time to speak to us. And obviously, it would be good to see you again in Iceland sometime.
Yeah. Well, there's one more thing on when you asked me also before on the previous workshop. Remember?
Yeah. So I think we had you over here, like you came to visit the Icelandic Cafe, and it was interesting because I think the point you made for us, it improved our UEFA A course. I think you, just by sitting there with you one weekend, it improved the way we were assessing coaches. So I think we can see clear value in it already, and it just goes by saying, what the stuff you're doing in Ireland is important. And
Yeah, I enjoyed your workshop, and like assessment is a very difficult thing to do. So providing feedback and asking the right questions is one of the key skills of the coach educator, and there should be clear criteria and objective. And so that all, and I remember there was a group of approximately 20 coach educators, that they all have, let's say, the same vision and the same idea, so that it doesn't make a difference for a student that he would be assessed by you or somebody else. And of course there's a difference, but the challenge is to get as close as possible, and that requires an ongoing assessment of the criteria as well. What do we expect and how do we?
I think I think two things, I think the evaluation was changed a little bit, just the paper and the requirements that we're working with. And also, I think it showed us that, it's a small country, and sometimes, being a small country, you can have personal relations, with coaches. So
yeah.
Maybe, we gotta be quite clear on that we're assessing the coach and not the person.
Absolutely. So not being subjective, but objective.
Exactly.
And that is a challenge. As you say, relations, people know each other, but that's why professionalism is so important. It's not about the person, it's about what you deliver.
Yeah. But okay, thank you. Off to the next meeting, I presume.
Yeah. And well, I have still an hour left here, so I can prepare myself. But no, it was very enjoyable, and I hope it's beneficial, and I hope the coaches enjoyed it.
Definitely. Thank you very much for the talk.
You're very welcome, Dadi. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.